first question. Right here.
Why do you think that gangster stories are so interesting these days when the leading stories or American pop stars?
I think gangsters and officers never went away. There's always room for
Yeah, they didn't give us microphones. And it's
show by now, like Mob City now.
no choice. They don't. Why don't they have microphones?
We're gonna double these up.
I like this one.
Fuzzy Boom, that was good. That was like putting like some ink ribbon on your luggage.
That's right.
Yeah, right? You know. I mean, who isn't fascinated with the stories of bad guys? There's a lot more depth than the guys that fight and do battles with bad guys. It's, all this trick in the book.
When you look at Brazil, when you look at America in the old days, maybe a little bit more than Brazil, a lot of countries, we had people coming here from all over the world turn of the century. And especially when you go to big cities, like I grew up near Detroit, and you see like the melting pot of Detroit, like in New York, Chicago, all these different ethnicities and these different religious groups coming together, finding the dream of America. And then at the same time saying, I gotta fight for my place in America. And then we resort to mobs. They resort to families getting together and saying, I'm gonna take you out if you come on the street. It's kind of a romantic notion about that nowadays that can be identified with being American. And we all have to get along, and we still are trying to get along. I think that's part of it as well. Glorifying it in a way, but also saying, this actually really happened.
Can you guys talk to me a little bit about your characters and kind of what people can expect when they turn in to watch the precinct?
Yeah, I play Bugsy Siegel, obviously a real character. He's sort of the head of the crime syndicate, I guess you'd say, in Los Angeles. Milo's character is a fictional character named Ned, who's a lawyer, but who kind of is playing both sides of the fence. And Robert's character is Sid Rothman, who is also a fictional character, who is sort of like, I guess, the hitman, the muscle of the operation.
Yeah.
You're basically hanging out with the crooks.
And, it's, in 47, it's when, I forget, what's the Neil's character's name?
Oh yeah, he's
Parker.
William Parker.
William Parker.
Neil McDonough.
Neil McDonough. Basically, they're making a move. They want to, basically squash the mob, if you will. And that's kind of what goes on in the first season. Frank would do a much better job giving you a succinct synopsis of what the show is, but
It's
best I
basically
can do right now.
it's the war in 1947 between the cops and the mob.
Was
And
it hard for you guys to choose? Like, when you heard about this role, was it like, yes, I'm doing it, or did you guys have to think about it? Like, what made you kind of like hop on?
There was no thought, I know, for me, and
Yeah.
we've all kind of openly discussed it.
Darabont.
Yeah, it's Frank.
It's
It's
sort of a
Frank.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
I remember in the pilot asking Simon Pegg that question. He said, I'm dying to work with Frank. And every actor you know that's worked with Frank says the same thing. I felt that way for years as well. If Frank calls, you try to work it out. And the fact that he likes you and he wants you in it is a really nice feeling.
Yeah.
We each have our own specific things probably that he saw, that he knows, a wealth of films and respected in the business. For me, it was Prison Break, which is I realize is a beautiful rip-off of Shawshank Redemption. Paul Sharon probably admitted, and the fact that Frank appreciates that and embraced it and loved T-Bag, it was just great. The fact that he told me that and he loved it. Milo, for you, what do you think?
I put myself on tape. I put myself on tape, and as I hear, I think Frank said, "Who the fuck is this guy?" and in a good way, forgive my language. But yeah, it was Frank. It was the material. It was what the story was. I mean, my family, coming from Chicago and my dad's upbringing and all that, you know, I'd always hear the stories of like old syndicate, crime syndicates, mob, all that, you know, and so, and who doesn't love a gangster picture? So for me, it was, you know, knowing that Frank is at the helm and he's the boss and we're running, we've got these great characters and this beautiful, I mean, honestly, guys, such a beautiful script, such a beautiful script. And when us as actors get to see something on a page and you don't have you don't have to act, you just have to show up and say the words and it's going to be great. But then you get around such great players and you can embrace who your character is and you find new dimension and depth to things. It's just such a really wonderful process.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
With
man.
so many shows pushing pushing violence and kind of breaking boundaries with that, did you find any trouble with that on TNT being like on a network, or do you think the show's going to be as hard hitting and gritty as?
No, I think because it's not network. It's it's
It's
what do you
cable.
call it? Basic
Cable,
cable?
yeah.
And it's walking
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I was kind of pleasantly surprised that it's we're allowed to basically do and show and say almost everything.
Awesome.
And if you're going to make a gangster show, you want that room to make it realistic but also fun.
Right.
So we were able to do that.
You're tackling a role that's been tackled very many times
Yeah.
by some major people. So what was your angle on? Because you're also the one of the first actors who actually looks like him too. He was a very good-looking guy. I don't know how many people are aware of that. Bugsy Siegel. So what was your what was your take on capturing
My thing
such
was
an important,
I
such a
purposely-
major character?
Yeah, well, I purposely did not look at any, most specifically the Warren Beatty film.
Right.
I watched a doc on Bugsy. I did some reading, a little research on the time period. But really, Frank said to me, "Look, this guy has to be larger than life. He walks into the room, people have to immediately love him and fear him, and just have fun with that." The other thing I've been joking around is like when I did my research and I saw he was from Brooklyn, I was like, all right, I don't have to work on an accent, which works for me. If you've seen my work, I got one accent I do really well.
I can't wait for you to do like the caricature of you as you get older. Like Christopher Walken is Chris Walken now, Like all those guys.
One of the beautiful things I want to add to that when he came on to the show. I mean, everybody knows Ed Burns, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm best friends with this guy since I was a little kid, and you can't. I'm starting to sound like
I was gonna say, you're gonna go into
you
your.
do the Ed Burns thing. No, you can't manufacture that. You can't manufacture that kind of relationship. You have it or you don't. And Ed came onto the set, and immediately, instead of, not that I had any preconceived idea that you wouldn't be this way, but you immediately reached out to everybody. You were just like, I grew up in Ohio. You were like an Ohio boy. You were like, hey, how are you? I want to talk to you. I want to know your story. And it really pulled us together. And that's a beautiful thing, because one, you don't have any time. You got to figure it out. And that relationship, the bunch of us, the boys, was boom, right there. And every day we told stories. Every day we cracked each other up. We were curious about each other. We wanted to know about our past, about our families, and that's what these guys would do in real life. Ben and Siegel and Sid and Ed, we'd hobnob with each other. We'd take the piss out of each other. We'd joke with each other. We'd commiserate, and that real life bonding came into the character. That was great.
Yeah, I think we feel like on the show real friends, probably because not just the three of us, but all of us kind of we clicked immediately, which doesn't always happen. We got really lucky.
Jeremy Luke and Richard Brake, two other posse. You raising your hand? Two other posse in the Crooks.
Singapore.
Hi.
You guys playing the bad guys in this series, so how do you channel your inner bad boy?
I'm always bad. I don't know. Look at me.
Milo's
I just look
evil.
like trouble.
You gotta look out for Milo.
I don't know. Well, my character is actually kind of gray. He's a guy who operates on both sides of the law. He is, of course, the attorney for the mob, but he's so intertwined in the underbelly of the mob and the inner workings of it that you wonder just how much of the dark side he's in the shadow. So, for me it was I don't know, kind of playing real life. Sometimes you're the good guy, sometimes you're the bad guy. Sometimes you just need to get things done.
I've done so many romantic comedies that I couldn't wait to have an opportunity to beat the shit out of somebody on screen.
Oh man,
And it was so much fun. So it was very easy to tap into, my dark and more violent side. Again, I think most actors love playing the bad guys. The bad guys are always much more fun. No real effort required.
I would add that I learned years ago here in New York, Bill Esper was a great acting teacher. And he always taught you to play the opposite. And especially I find playing bad guys, like bad guys don't think that they're bad guys. They think they're doing something really great. In this case, protecting family, protecting a best friend. And so that's how I go about it. I say, okay, what am I doing positive here? Not negative. And then usually that works out.
Anybody else?
Milo, the last few years you do a lot of movies. How has changed TV now that you are returning to TV?
For me it was a script like Mob City. It was what Frank wrote. I coming off of Heroes, coming out of Gilmore and American Dreams and Bedford and all those things that kind of raised me. It's always about the material, and in this there was just I can't say it enough. It's just such a great script. It's funny because I barely pop up in the first episode until kind of toward the very end, and it was very selective about who got the entire script and not. My character hadn't even shown, and I was like, I'm in, because you see it on the page, and it's always about that for me. Is what's the character, who am I going to be working for and with, and what stories am I telling? So this was definitely something to step back into the TV arena with, because it truly was that special. Is that special?
Yes, for all three of you, the roles, how do you guys prepare from do you guys have to look at your character and then study your character, or do you just transition into the 1950s?
Yeah.
I think we all work in very similar ways and also very different ways. I learned a long time ago to start with a character on the inside and go out. No, they tried to teach me that, to start with the inside and go to the outside, but I still screw it up. I still get an idea in my head about something. Like with this, I heard a famous, iconic actor named Sterling Hayden, and I just kept hearing him in my head. And I stupidly went for Sterling Hayden's voice. I get it. This kind of thing. I had to go back and find organically what it was, who was this real guy. The trick I realized with especially the 40s is don't go for that. Yeah, she, I mean, man, yeah. It's just a cliche. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. He was very good at they're very good at not doing that. I had to
No, but see, it wasn't that I just can't. It's hard.
You can't act. No, you can't act the part. You have to be believable.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. I can screw up all the time. People think I'm not acting.
I want to ask Ed, why do you think the bad guys became so charismatic in this movie, like Walter White?
I think what it is part of it I think is just quite honestly wish fulfillment. Everyone had, you guys are all in New York. Somebody bumped into you on the sidewalk, a cab cut you off, a guy in a deli pissed you off. You want to go Walter White on them, or Bugsy Siegel. You want to take that fucker and bash his head through the window. I know you do. But you can't do that. So you put on Breaking Bad. And we get to live through those characters. I'm kidding around, but I think that's a big part of it. People have always, it's a little bit of wish fulfillment in that we would love, we wish that in those situations we could act the way the gangster does. is. The other thing is, they're fascinating characters. I mean, these two guys are fictional characters in this piece, but Frank had a blast writing them. Bugsy, a real character who lived a crazy, wild life, and that makes for great drama. So, I think it's for all of those reasons. We'll go you and then
Go deep and come.
Miles, when you're playing a model, the first thing that came out in the 1940s was Tom Hagen, loved him on The Godfather.
Yeah.
But your character basically is different. He's again on the gray. He's helping detective team at the same time as the mob lord. What kind of inspiration or influence did you look into?
For
How
me,
is that different from Tom Hagen?
I mean, look, Tom Hagen was a guy that sometimes, he was asked to step out of the room. I think a character like mine, like Ned Stacks, he's a guy who has the smarts to understand how to orchestrate something. So that was the way that I saw Ned Stacks, was more of a Sidney Korshak. He's a guy who's so smart, so damn smart. He can see all the angles and all the players and everything going on, and know exactly how to maneuver and how to get, do what his boss is asking him to. So that was the approach for me. It was less the guy who was family, was a guy who was actually groomed to be in this business because somebody saw him and saw how smart he was and said, you're going to work for these guys. And he took it and embraced it, and they embraced him. That was a big thing with our characters was, my character was placed there, and this is my godfather, this is my guy, in a way. So I'm there to serve whatever needs he has. So it was coming from a very intellectual way, smart way, being able to beat the game of chess. Yeah.
You guys have mentioned how just awesome the script is, and for you that's what really drew you in. So, are there any one-liners or character descriptions or scene descriptions that really resonated with you or spoke to you, or that even sum up Mob City for you?
Man, I think they all kind of hit in the trailer.
There are a lot of them in the trailer. The beautiful thing about this show, one of the beautiful things is that TNT, wisely, I think, is going to air 2 episodes at a time for 3 weeks, right before Christmas. And it's one of those beautiful Christmas presents for everybody. And you just can't, you would spoil Christmas if you said what it was in that present, because it was glorious to act it. And now we see snippets of the product, and it's
I think you're
going to be a beautiful present. And we don't want to spoil
You're going to want to keep your ears open as much as your eyes are going to be glued to what you're seeing.
Doug.
Because it's
Here,
a Frank Darabont TV series, it's a little unnerving when you're reading a script knowing that no character is safe. You have a chance. And when Bugsy's fate, I know, is not the best. But for fictional characters, it's kind of unnerving when you're reading the script, like, you could be me. But you're part of something so great.
Did you feel that on Heroes ever? No, you were a superhero, so you're always
but they do shit like take my powers away. but I actually funny. I'd heard stories way back to like Tom Fontana on Oz where they're like, oh, I didn't die, but I get gang raped in the showers. It's amazing. But I'm pretty I think with Frank in the script, we had such a short amount of time. 6 episodes and 2 months of actual production that I know I wasn't thinking about who's buying it, who's sticking around or anything. It was just like, hey, let me just enjoy the hell out of this, because when am I going to get an opportunity like this to be around great actors, amazing crews, and a boss that gives everything, really gave everything to the production, I didn't think about whether I was living or dying or anything. I was just like, I'm just going to enjoy the hell out of it.
Nothing in this business lasts forever. No show lasts forever, and no character on a show lasts forever. When you're dealing with a genius, you just have to, like you say, step back and let him do that for you. It's not like I could go to Frank and say, can you please keep my character alive for the whole year? You just can't do that.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
Do you know if Frank, I know that he's not here, but do you know if he was influenced by any, like old mob genres? Because it reminded me a lot of like LA Confidential mixed in with like Sin City.
You know, if I may, I know she was just asking. She was just asking about like his influences. The John Bunham book. I know in conversations I've had with him, Frank said he was influenced by the John Bunham book. And old classic noir movies.
He wanted to make a noir movie with a character that has heart in a city that's going down.
The shitter.
The shitter.
Yeah. So you guys didn't hear that. He wanted to make what?
A noir film with a character that had heart in a city that was going downhill.
Ah.
Close?
Good one, yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.